How do you stop Christian McCaffrey?
That's a good question. I think it's a collective thing. It's going to take the entire defense. We're going to have to play really sound fundamental football. We're going to have to set edges at all levels of defense, whether it be the D-line, linebackers, secondary, and they get population to the ball and tackle really, really well. Assume that the guy that's approaching is going to miss the tackle, and assume that it's going to take all 11 to get him down. And that's a good assumption because a lot of times that's what it takes. He's a great player.
What's the challenge of this overall offense? Because they got good skill players everywhere.
Yeah, it's a lot of times you play offenses and they've got one point of emphasis for your defense, something that you have to take away, and these guys make it difficult on you because they are explosive outside. Between 11 and 2, both guys can take the top off it. Both are proven explosive deep threats in this league. Obviously, 11's got a rapport with Darnold, being that they play together here. It's tough. It's extremely tough because you'd like to say we just got to eliminate the explosives, but then there's space for number 22. So kind of picking and choosing when we do both, and trying to figure out where they're trying to feature certain guys in certain spaces and do our best to defend that.
When you have so many guys here who played on your defense, but against Sam Darnold in practice every single day for 2-3 years, do you almost give them bigger voices in the meetings and the game plans, like, hey, you've seen every quarterback on tape, but they've actually practiced against them every day? Do they have more say?
Yeah, they've definitely given that insight as the week's gone along, as far as what they felt like gave him trouble, what they felt like his strengths were. So, they've definitely had a part in the conversation. At the same time, I think you're going to see a different version of him, though, from the standpoint of the system is completely different than what he ran here, and they're going to feature his skill set in a little bit different way. So we're going to see a different Sam Darnold. I think it's very conducive to the player that he is.
What's the challenge with so many young guys you have on your unit, especially early in the season?
Right. I think that you got to be maybe simpler than you'd want to be, just from the standpoint, just let these guys execute at a high level, make sure that everybody's on the same page. We play hard, our technique, our physicality, our effort, all that comes to life. You have to really fight the urge to make schematic answers to problems sometimes, because although the schematic answer might be the right thing to do schematically, it's not the right thing to do by the way of a young group. So simpler, I think, is definitely better early on with these guys.
How do you think your quarterbacks are going to respond? I mean, we talked weeks ago about them being younger.
Right.
Young group, they got younger with Plus being gone now.
Yep.
How are they going to respond to this?
We'll see. This will be a great challenge for them. I think they're all up for it, though. Just to see their demeanor, it's not a passive group, although inexperienced and young, and none of them came highly regarded from the standpoint of draft status or whatever the case may be. They all have their own, inner confidence, swag to them that makes me feel better. They don't seem overwhelmed by any means. Now, Sunday's going to be a new challenge, and we'll see a new version of them because obviously it's their first time on a Sunday. But I'm excited for them, all of them too, because I think all of them are going to have a place to play Sunday. It's not going to be just two corners like a lot of teams play it. We're going to do a little bit by committee and let them all have a piece of it.
Robert was telling us that Sherwood's going to play the Mike linebacker position.
Mm-hmm.
I assume probably means CJ's going to play strong.
Or the will, yeah, we call it the will.
Why play CJ there? I mean, what about his skill set makes you think that's the right position for him? Because I think he's been in middle pretty much throughout his career.
Yeah, the way we play, I mean, they're both going to be in the middle of the defense. Really based upon the defense that we're playing. There's not a whole lot that is different between the two. Typically, the Mike backer would have the speaker in his helmet. That's probably the only real difference between the two. And he has the speaker in his helmet now. So he has the green dot, orange dot, whatever that dot is. So he's the one that runs the huddle, runs the defense. And then Jamin helps him with all the communication. But as far as the difference between Mike and Will, it's negligible. It's not a big deal at all.
From the other side of the ball, how would you describe Mike's, with Lur's offense here and just with the multiplicity and just as a follow to that, what kind of synergy do you see between he and Zach, this summer?
A lot. just the offense fundamentally, I think, is tailor-made for young quarterbacks because it leans so heavily on a run game. And then it, obviously the explosives come off the play pass that comes off the run game. But I think for a young guy that, it's his first time strapping up on a Sunday, that can be overwhelming. The fact that you can hand it off 30, 35, maybe 40 times a game is a huge source of relief, I think, for a young quarterback. Helps him get into a rhythm, helps him, I think, feel that he doesn't have to do everything, and I think that the relationship between him and Mike has become very strong, and the communication is strong between the two, and I think the more comfortable Zach gets, I think the more leash that Mike will give him, and I'm excited to see the kid go out there and throw it around a little bit.
How far has Shaq Lawson come in 10 days learning the system?
Come a long way. That's the beauty of our defensive line. Although the technique, the details within what we do are very complex and it's very fine-tuned, we don't do a lot, So from that standpoint, it's very player-friendly for a guy to come in and be able to contribute right away. So we're excited about the role that he'll have with us. I think he's going to be day one, a violent vertical edge setter. He's going to be a fantastic first second down end for us. And I think as his rush continues to improve and he starts to really learn our pressure package and all that we do, he'll have a bigger and bigger role.
Jeff, sorry, I missed who's running the defensive huddle when you and Connor were talking about heat.
CJ is.
I thought, okay.
Yeah.
I figured that.
Yep.
And have you talked to have you talked
Sam.
to Zach about defenses and concepts? Did he come into your office? Can you walk us through kind of how that happened?
He has, but not to that extent, not yet. And I think that can be. I think that will come. I think that can become detrimental to a young guy, wanting every bit of information.
Right.
You know everything and you know nothing. So. I think once he gets really comfortable with the offense and he's thinking less about his job and he's thinking more about what he's seeing and what he's facing from week to week, I could definitely see us, starting that dialogue. I mean, he's a guy that, are there hour rules for the players right now? If there were, he's violating all those rules because he is here, it seems like, as long as we are, so.
Come in and try to do that with you, what Kim is doing, or is that something you said to him, listen, you should worry about your thing right now, we'll get deeper into it?
Yeah, I'm sure that time will come. He hasn't, but I would love to in the future. But I think that's a process. I think he's got to really fine-tune what he's doing first.
Yeah, you talk about the youth and inexperience. How important is it to have the person and the player mostly is back there?
It's big. Yeah, he's definitely a source of experience, and guy's been there and done that. And he's also a guy that is as even-keeled as I've seen any player in this league, especially at the caliber that he plays. So he's a great source of consistency and just the demeanor, I think, is calming to these young guys, and they're going to lean on him on Sunday for sure.
Jeff, it's always interesting when the coordinator has a head coach who came from that side of the ball, kind of made his bones on that side of the ball. What has that been like with you and Robert, kind of figuring out what you want this defense to be and kind of blending both
Right.
things?
No, it's been awesome. His insight and his help and his assistance is invaluable. His brain is just, it's different, very uncommon in that way, just the way he sees the game and the way he really sees it from both sides of the ball. I was telling him today, his team meeting was one of the best I've ever been a part of, just the way that he brought everyone together, offensively, defensively, and just how important every little detail is within it. So he's a guy, obviously, that he gives me a ton of help. He's going to be a big part of what we do defensively. He's going to be a big part of what we do offensively. But he's been a great resource for sure.
Your D-line versus their O-line, it seems like that's in your advantage. So from a schematic standpoint, what are some ways that you can do to make sure you exploit that matchup?
Don't do too much and let them eat, and let them go forward. And fortunately, that's kind of how the system is built. We're not a big drop ends, drop D tackles, and do a lot of craziness with them. We train them really well at going forward, and that's usually conducive to good rushers and good edge setters and good run defenders. So just let them eat.
Last one from Darren.
Jeff, you were in Atlanta last year and you took over as defensive coordinator,
Right.
obviously in the same division as Carolina. How helpful has that been to you in your preparation for the Panthers and Joe Brady's offense since you faced it last year?
It's been good. You know, like obviously I played them, and I know their personnel well, being in the division for 6 years, and you know, I've faced them a ton of times. But it's funny, game one, especially for I think a young coordinator like Joe Brady. He's a guy that he's not scared of thinking outside the box. So I think, although they've got their staples and they've got their you know their base fundamentals and the stuff that they do, I can imagine we're going to see quite a bit of unscouted looks and stuff that he's never put on tape. So I think in a normal year it would have been probably more advantageous, the fact that this is game one. We'll see. Hopefully it helps, but he could definitely go in a lot of different directions.